My name is Mike Makar. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to you today about our journey with AppDynamics and APM, which really started about in the fall of 2015, and we've been hard at it deploying AppDynamics to over 400 production applications now. We've done that over the past year. It's been a really terrific journey, and I'm happy to share the story with you today. So a little bit about the World Bank. We're based out of Washington. There's about 30,000 World Bank staff, employees, contractors that are based in over 180 country offices. The goal of the World Bank is to reduce poverty and boost shared prosperity. So our current president, Jim Kim, has a mission of, by the year 2030, to alleviate extreme poverty and bring up the people that are in the bottom 40% of the world. So it's structured between public sector finance, private sector finance, all of which the World Bank loans money, not in the traditional sense, not like a retail bank, but to countries, governments, helping to go into countries where there's no market for private investors and help to make those markets. And World Bank also has a lot of advisory personnel that are experts in their given field, such as mining, manufacturing, agriculture, water treatment, and so forth. So internally to the bank, most of my clients are, pretty much all my clients are internal. We have the operational products, which are really centered in the IBRD, a lot of the lending and the monitoring of big projects that are taking place around the world. IFC, International Finance Corporation, which is the private sector financing arm of the World Bank, and the World Bank Treasury, who manages over $200 billion for central banks, governments, and they're a key customer for us. So in our journey with AppDynamics, we have laid it down in applications across all of these business lines. And it's been a terrific journey so far. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit today is why we went down this path of modernization at the World Bank, why we needed APM, and why we chose AppDynamics too, because we also looked at many of the competitors in the market. We looked very closely at them, and what business value that we're getting out of AppDynamics today. This track session, I assume that many of you maybe you're customers or maybe you're potential customers, so you can hopefully learn a little bit about our journey and what worked well, the value that we're getting out of it today. I'll give you some advice on how to make an AppDynamics deployment successful. You're investing a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy. You want that return on investment, so I'll give you some advice there. And really what's next for us at the World Bank in the APM and monitoring space. So I manage the enterprise monitoring and performance testing teams for the World Bank. So I have half my team in Washington, half my team in Chennai, India. It's a team of about 20, mostly engineers. We have project managers and some business analysts as well. And we set this journey off, like I said, in the fall of 2015. We had at the time, over 50 monitoring tools. Monitoring was very segregated and not very functional. So a team would get a budget, they would buy a monitoring tool, right? They would, every ops team had a tool. We had 5, I think, instances of SiteScope out there, 4 instances of PRTG, the whole BSM stack, right? And then, the problem was the bank had spent all this money on these tools, but we were getting very little value out of it because we weren't even sure what was being monitored. One team was saying that they were monitoring all their web applications. A lot of that, there was no visibility into what they were actually monitoring, so things would go down. This was a major cultural issue because a lot of these teams didn't want people seeing into their problems, right? The issues that they were having, and this created a culture of finger pointing and blaming each other, right? Have the database team has their tools, the network team has their tools, web admins, right? They do what they want to do. The alerting is not very functional. So what's the result of that? The executive management gets called from other VPs or country office directors saying, hey, we can't use the mobile approval apps, we can't get into my HR, we can't look in the operational products, right? These applications and services were down all the time, and they would find out about it through either VPs or other clients, right? Complaining of either poor performance, poor response time, or the applications and services themselves just weren't reliable. So this was a key initiative for us, right? We said, all right, now we have the backing of management. They want to make sure we get the right alerts to the right IT stakeholders as quickly as possible to restore service and make sure we can measure and protect the user experience. So this was a huge initiative for us to look at the landscape, get rid of what wasn't working. This really comes into being able to simplify and wrap our heads around fewer tools. We have the right resources, skilled resources, now focusing on those tools instead of managing a lot of different tools, and giving us the visibility that we need into our critical business services, right? From an end user point of view, the application developers need to understand what's happening at the code level and why their sites are going down or they're not performing well. We need this everybody to be on the same page, right, across the board, right? This is what makes the monitoring efforts successful. Getting all your users across all these different teams in the same data. So we had to look deeply and do a gap analysis of what was working, what wasn't working, what we needed to look at, make management happy, make our clients happy. And now our applications we're consolidating data centers. We're spanning to AWS and Azure, right? Now we have microservices and APIs to keep track of. And a lot of these teams, there's no single team that has an idea of how their application really looks together, right? So it was critical for us to modernize and bring in the right tools, the right solutions, put them together, get rid of the stuff that wasn't working, right? And make sure that we were proactively monitoring the right applications, the right services, being able to give our management, executive management, performance-based reporting from all across the world, right? 180 plus country offices, right? Where we still have VSAT link types, right? In many parts of the world today, right? It's very slow, but people complain all the time about it, but there was no way to measure it. We didn't have accurate data, and we didn't even have the visibility to be able to manage it. So to talk a little bit about APM, because we looked at many tools, we're doing a lot more with data analytics now. We needed APM, as I mentioned, because there was lack of visibility across all the different teams, right? Ops teams, dev teams. There was no management reporting, and we wanted everybody to be on the same page. The outage calls could take days sometimes. The root cause analysis could take weeks to be able to identify an issue with an application. So you can imagine, you get all these teams together. I'm sure many of you have the same problem, but it's very costly to your organization to have so many people spending their time troubleshooting issues and not being successful in not finding the problem or taking just entirely too long to find it, right? And this is what creates this culture of pointing fingers and, having teams not trust each other, right? I mean, we're all on the same team, but they act like they're little individual silos where they can't get along and they're always right, and the network and the database teams get blamed all the time. So lack of the ability to measure the right KPIs, the right metrics that our clients want to hear, right? So I kind of put this picture up here to show, the kind of the before and after, just to show from a global map, right? World Bank, a very large global institution. Before you would have kind of like this was a picture of the BSM tool on the top where, you had green and yellow and red dots, but there were like 10 KPIs underneath of there. Right, so you'd highlight over any of them. You see one turn red, and it's like, all right, well, what's happening in sub-Saharan Africa? And it would show you 10 different KPIs, right? And even the ones that you wanted to look at, such as performance and availability and maybe mean time to resolution, weren't accurate, right? Because we either didn't have the right level of coverage, or the tool it wasn't collecting the right data. So what we really needed was a view that just highlighted, look, show us the user traffic. Everybody loves the after, right? All these application teams go in there, they see what the top worst performing countries are, right? The best performing, which countries have the most errors, load, and then they can drill down and see the user's transactions and snapshots and what the user sessions look like and what actual users are complaining about, right? We never had this level of detail before. So APM is a critical strategic technology for us. And when we went through and said, all right, well, we know we need this, right? We know we need to be able to show the developers the data they need, management the data they need, ops teams the data that they need, right? Which solution will be the best for us, right? And there are many APM solutions out there. When the AppDynamics value proposition for us was around handling the complexity of applications. So really being able to get into our Java, we're heavy Java.NET shops, being able to build the view of those applications across the different APIs and services and microservices that our teams use today. I mean, when we did this, I mean, it was incredible, a lot of the value that the teams got right away. I mean, even I think in the POC stage, you know, you could see a production app talking to non-production database servers and app servers and stuff like that. So that was critical for us. Also, the real user piece of it, being able to see the user's session, what the user's doing, and then be able to drill down into the back-end transactions for troubleshooting. Our developers use this stuff. I mean, it's, you know, beyond candy for them at this point. I mean, they use this day in and day out. And at this point, I think that we've changed the culture enough that I don't think they could live without it. So mobile, the big mobile push today, right? I mean, you're all probably dealing with that. At the bank, they want more, users are asking for more and more mobile, native mobile applications. We've had some hybrid for a while. Now they want the native mobile applications, so we needed native mobile support for that, support for Xamarin as a development platform, and being able to see the user experience from the mobile phones. Analytics. I talk about this a lot lately. I see the monitoring function moving more into a data analytics function because it's important to keep, you know, monitoring servers and services and dig deep into the app layer, but the data that we're collecting is so useful for solving business problems, right? I mean, we turn on RUM, we start collecting, you know, loan-related data, right, and project info. As our investment officers go through projects, we're seeing all the project IDs, what stage of the workflow that they're in, and we're able to put together reports for management now that gives them a little bit better sense of, in real time, how the business is performing and where issues are cropping up. So, I mean, we've only really scratched the surface of what we can do with the data analytics capabilities today. Talked about deep application diagnostics, and server monitoring. So server monitoring, something that has been, you know, so many different tools to do server monitoring, whether it's ping or looking at the CPU memory, disk space, disk I/O, those type of statistics, right? This is so important in context while your teams are troubleshooting. So your application developers are looking at this stuff right now. They don't need to go and bother the web admins because they can get this information for themselves, right? And they can leave them alone, right, to a certain extent. And they work much better together because of that. The alerting is a lot more accurate now because we have a wide coverage across our infrastructure. And we're automating a lot of the alerts being sent through the on-call process, and the teams are able to just, I mean, they know how to use AppDynamics now to solve their problems. So to talk a little bit more about the business value, right? The dev teams are able to see the same data as our operations teams, right? I talk about this so much because this was a major cultural issue for us that clients constantly are hammering the different teams. Development teams are pointing fingers saying that the web admins or the database admins aren't giving them enough resources, right? Getting these teams on the same page is so important, right? The better and more accurate alerting, right? Being able to see this application flow map. Now, any user can come in here, and it doesn't matter what team that they're on, and they can see how this is laid out, right? It's so important to get the right structure together in the tier and node naming so that it's focused on your services. But these reports here, and then being able to go from yellow and red to drill down into where these issues lie in a few clicks is paramount for us. So being able to get the level of reporting that we need from across the world and see from each country office and each city what that performance is like, and then be able to report on it quarter over quarter so that our CIO can see that, hey, performance is actually improving, right? It's so important for us to be able to measure the performance and give these KPIs to our management. So as a result of the efforts that we've that we've really put in here with AppDynamics, our CIO came up with multiple different KPIs that he wants around performance, availability, mean time to resolution, mean time between service failures, right? So that we'll be automating this on a quarterly basis. So they can get this data, and the most important thing is now the app teams don't even bother us anymore. They put the code on the pages when it gets rolled out, right? They put the agents on the app as soon as a new application is delivered, right? This idea of the self-service model is really what will make you successful. The monitoring team can't be big enough. It becomes a bottleneck. It's so important that you educate your user base how to use AppDynamics, and you need power users too, right? You need people that are skilled at it, especially on the technical side. And they will do a lot of this stuff for themselves, right? The configurations, their own alerting, right? We change the culture so that now it's not our fault if an application goes down and you don't know about it, right? You as the business owner or the application owner or the ops team, right? You're responsible for your own area, right? We give you the tools to do it, but it's so important for you to make sure that you're configuring the right metrics and the right alerts, and that you're receiving the pages through your on-call the on-call system, right? So we turn that responsibility over to them. And this view here shows kind of the tabs at the top. We get a lot of feedback about this here, that when the teams are troubleshooting, it's great to be able to go through a few clicks to look at the errors, to look at the server resources, right? To drill down into the call stack, right? AppDynamics collects so many more metrics than what we saw through other vendors. So just in your troubleshooting efforts, it's so valuable, but also when you want to export the data and maybe put it into another system for analytics or whatever you want to do, the metrics are there and the API is easy to query and get data out of. So as I mentioned, right, it's created some cultural changes and a lot of benefits that I actually didn't realize that it would. I was hoping to solve the problems of helping developers see where their problems are and solve their where the bottlenecks are and solve the performance issues. We've even helped some of our vendor, the COTS products that people bring in, we use AppDynamics to help troubleshoot those for the vendor. The team stopped blaming each other. This is something that I've been in the monitoring space for a while, and I've seen just the shift at the World Bank, which is a very large, there's lots of different teams, lots of political things going on, but now they work together to solve the problems together, and they really have stopped blaming each other, right? I can't remember the last time we've had the war room scenario. A lot of the outages that occur now are solved quickly. We don't get into big war rooms anymore, right? The level we have, AppDynamics rolled out to 400 production applications. These are really our mission critical, our core applications, right? We have a little bit more to go, but for the most part, we've covered the bank's critical stuff. And it's led to a lot of less outages, right? No more calls in the middle of the night, which is great for us. And the whole point of the investment was to find problems quickly, restore service before clients start complaining of issues, right? And of course, one thing that I should have thought about in the beginning was the management reporting, right? It took us a little while to give them the type of data, the format that they wanted. That is so important to get the management buy-in to say, they actually have something in this too. At first I was thinking about it more of, hey, we needed to solve the tech problems, but the management reporting that's come out of it and the analytics is huge for us, and it's all automated. Now I don't have to do anything. The reports are just there. So it's critical. This is a great chart of some of the problem tickets per application starting to decline since we rolled out these solutions, right? So important that we're creating trust and reliability with the business, right? IT can look at us now, and they really, the business folks look at us now, and our surveys that come out are much more positive. They think we're doing the right things, right? The applications are reliable, the performance is improving, and when they have issues, we get back to them and we can help solve their problems quickly. So I want to talk just briefly about a little bit of advice on the successful deployment, right? You undertake a big change by consolidating out legacy monitoring tools, right? You have to sell a lot of people on it, right? You have to sell a lot of people internally that maybe resisted the change. You have to sell your management who are giving you the money. So prioritize the benefits to the leadership, right? The whole side on the prioritize leadership needs, right? It's identifying your gaps, what you're missing today, what your management wants solved, right? Especially for them, especially if it's related to reporting or service restoration. You need that buy-in from management. We were so successful because we had a director and a line reporting up that said, you know what, monitoring is absolutely critical for us. Monitoring is so important. We want the visibility. I want 100% coverage. All of our applications and our systems to be in here, right? To make sure that we know before clients experience problems, right? What the problem is, and we restore the service quickly. And then we take the data that's being collected and help to improve the quality, the reliability, the performance of the applications, right? So defining those requirements for leadership and executing, right? Also, making it easy for your customers to onboard AppDynamics. We streamline the process through a nice data onboarding questionnaire that gives them the right questions to say, hey, how is your service constructed? Can you give us an architecture diagram? For the first probably 6 months, we met with every client team that we wanted to onboard quickly. We gave them the sort of a form to fill out that answered all the right questions, that gave us the right information back to name the tiers and nodes correctly. That's so important. And we worked through them and we trained them and we educated them on how to use the tool and start getting value out of it quickly. Because a lot of people just want you to install it and they think that it's just going to run and it's just some magic button you push that just fixes all their problems, right? Which isn't the case. People do have to put time and energy in learning how the tool works and doing the right configurations. At first, my understanding was, why do we need to do all the tier and node naming, right? Why don't we just put it all on and just name it one thing? But it's important to be able to visualize the application, not so much as your apps mapped to the infrastructure like a discovery tool would do, but actually what the application would look like based on your most critical services. So some of our views are really, really wild and crazy, but it gives the team the level of visibility that they need, the granularity that they need to solve their problems. And really start with your most critical applications, of course, right? This is probably a no-brainer, but your management and they're going to want to see the value as soon as possible. So start with your high visibility applications, right? I think you would probably do that anyway. But giving them training material, we've partnered with AppDynamics. They came in. They've done sort of multiple different user trainings on different topics, right? We recorded them, put them on our intranet site, and now when new hires come on, they can go and run through the material and the videos. And eliminating the bottlenecks, right? This is where you train your user base to be self-sufficient is. I can't highlight this enough, right? This model of all of our tools now, and I gotta have a slide here that I'll talk a little bit about that. But making the user base able to do what they need in the tools and get the value quickly without having the monitoring team be a bottleneck. And going back, we bought AppDynamics, I think, about 1.5 years ago. And at the time, I mean, the SaaS wasn't maybe not the best option for us. Maybe people resisted the move to cloud, right? This is only 1.5 years ago, even though that was on the radar. Now, I mean, it would be a no-brainer to do the SaaS, right? If you can do the SaaS, definitely do it. I think you'll benefit from the performance improvements and the way they do their metric store and event store in HBase as opposed to on-prem. So that I would do that in a second if I could do it over again. So let's talk a little bit about our technology. Right, we went from 50 tools to just a handful where we use AppDynamics for APM. We also use Splunk, which AppDynamics and Splunk has a very good sort of mutual benefits, right? Splunk as a data analytics tool, and Splunk IT Service Intelligence, which looks at the visibility of applications as well, and PagerDuty, which is the on-call alert management and incident management tool. So all of our alerts now, we're configuring them to go directly to PagerDuty so that it can go through the on-call process, and this is also a cultural change for us. being able to not have to rely on the NOC for every single critical alert, right? A lot of this stuff that's in the monitoring, it can be automated and it can move through quickly, right? And there were a lot of issues with not knowing who's on call and teams managing their own kind of on call. Right now, this also gets everybody on the same page, with getting their most critical notifications. So the culture was, if you receive a critical alert, right, to your phone, you take action on it, right? We work very hard to reduce the noise. Too many email alerts, too many text messages, right? Get rid of this stuff. Only alert teams when they need to respond, and it's critical, right? Something that they have to respond to immediately and restore service. So for us at World Bank, next steps really, we're very close to having 100% of our whole World Bank landscape in AppDynamics, the application monitoring and service infrastructure, sending the rest of the critical alerts to PagerDuty, being able to do more custom data collection where we can take advantage of the analytics capabilities and start moving more from a pure operational sense to using the data that we're collecting to solve business problems.